Good afternoon, everybody. Patty here. I have this article I want to read to you. It's a little lengthy, so I apologize, but it's got a lot of good information in it, and it's from Waking Times. Have You Seen the Future? February 26th, 2018. That's an awfully pretty picture, huh? Okay, from the Waking Times. Excuse me. Julian Rose, contributor. We have all come across claims, past and present, in which someone states that they have seen the future. Some of these claims make good reading, listening, even if they are predominantly apocalyptic in nature. Nostradamus is perhaps the most famous amongst such seers, and no doubt he really did visit recent events on this planet during his lifetime in the 16th century Europe. His foretelling of the destruction of the Twin Towers 9/11 was a particularly chilling example. Some predictions carry with them a certain cachet. Those who are being told this scenario often fall silent, lean forwards, and widen their eyes. A fair number take the proclamation seriously and then tell their own versions of stories that made an impression on them. Thus, a wide range of projected pictures of the future, typically of the country one lives in, are on display at any one time. So one can pick and choose or simply reject them all. But what exactly is going on here? To make any sense of this, we need to explore the practice behind what we call the predictive and what we call free will. The predictive involves following the sequences involved in the playing out of major life events largely outside our control, like our deep state shadow government. They are definitely outside of our control. Okay, free will believes that the future is infinitely changeable, having the potential to be shaped by us and tied to a vision where we want to go. There are many other ways in which seeing the future can be experienced, but I don't propose exploring these in this article. Instead, I wish to explore the historical line which shows how the power to manipulate events on Earth was and remains in the hands of a smaller number of individuals having the status necessary to take a controlling influence over large segments of humanity for significant periods of time. In regard to this scenario, we can clearly recognize the existence of a long line of planned inter-bloodline marital agreements, breeding programs, especially established so that the authority of the controlling power is maintained within one particular family grouping for decade after decade and century after century. An interesting example of this is that every president of the United States, barring the Dutch-born Martin van Buren, 8th president, is purported to have retained a blood tie to British royalty from George Washington onwards. George I of England is the root source of this unlikely family tree. Now, given that the ability to maintain wealth and position results from carefully planned intermarriage agreements, it is not so surprising that these families and their chosen accomplices are able to pull the strings of world events, in other words, to control the future. Think of the Rockefeller and the Rothschild families' involvement in funding both sides during the 2 world wars. Now go on to think how, given the power and longevity of these fiefdoms, it became possible to make a prediction. Yes, I read that right. It became possible to make a prediction about the coming course of events, following a quite logical pattern. The further progression of the I can't pronounce that one, oligarchical master plan for humanity. In Nostradamus' time, the main controllers had their base in the Vatican, and the royal fiefdoms of old Europe. Both, no doubt, worked with dark side energies through secret society networks, entrusted with keeping a line open to the darker powers that maintain a keen interest in the evolution of our planetary activities. So when Nostradamus witnessed the destruction of the Twin Towers of World Trade Center, he saw a culmination point of a line of events planned by a combination of earthly and non-earthly powers. Many centuries earlier, powers working on and with a vibratory level similar to that involved by the 33rd degree Masons during ritualistic gatherings in Masonic lodges around the world. Okay? Donald Trump is a 33rd degree Mason. So was Obama, Bush, yuppers. Taking all of this into account, one could say that the predestination interpreted as the foreseeable rolling out of a planned formula by those with enough power over the people to make it happen has a very predictable logic, as well as a certain fatalistic attraction for those feeling powerless to effect significant change to the master plan. Predicting the future when, like Aldous Huxley, you are confirming from the inside, it's not so difficult. One needs to know the composition of the master plan and its tools of execution, and count on the fact that the combination of mind control and mass propaganda will keep the general populace from transgressing the script. I like this article. The great majority of humanity has indeed followed the script for thousands of years. Yes, we have. We certainly have. We're following that script today, thanks to mainstream fake news media. It has done so under a controlling, influencing, operating at a manipulative level undetected and unknown to most ordinary mortals. One that does not in any way have humanity's interest at heart, but that offers instead a predictable prison life which eventually becomes addictive and even gives the illusion of freedom. In fact, one might say that the regime having its hands on the prison thermostat doesn't have a heart at all, as love, compassion, and empathy are completely missing from its emotional composition. The leading secular and non-secular controlling institutions of our planet long since learned how to tap into dark energies and how to utilize them for both the repression of humanity's spiritual aspirations and the garnering of special powers in support of the cult of crass materialism. Most of those on the receiving end of this despotic hierarchy have misinterpreted the role it plays in deliberately keeping them servile to its goals. From the end of the Dark Ages and throughout the Middle Ages of European history, many believed that their slavery was down to the fact that God was punishing them for their sins they had supposedly inherited from the moral failures of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Thus spoke the moral authority of the time, the church. Right up until the present day, such oppressive dogma holds sway over large sections of humanity, encouraging fear and passivity, and blocking any potential for people-led uprising to bring lasting change to the destiny of the planet. The bloodline royal fiefdoms also exerted their own special control via conscripting young and able men into vast armies trained to go to war with each other in the name of the nation state from which they hailed. However, the real agenda was not nationalistic so much as materialistic, plundering another country's wealth for benefit of the elite and its favored entourage. Now read that paragraph again, substituting USA NATO for the royal fiefdoms. Okay? The bloodline USA/NATO also exerted their own special control via conscripting young and able men in vast armies trained to go to war with each other in the name of the nation state from which they hailed. However, the real agenda was not the nationalistic so much as the materialistic, plundering over another country's wealth for the benefit of the elite and its favored entourage. Nothing has changed. A triumphal glorification of the mother country as rallying war cry is a smokescreen used to great effect for centuries. Excuse me. However, not everything that went on within centuries of empire building and the empire dismantling was marked by a cold-blooded disinterest in the fate of humanity. Some kings, queens, princes, and nobles exerted some positive influence by introducing reforms to society which offered a glimmer of hope to those who served under them. History recounts the various stepping stones that led to the European Renaissance and a gradual loosening of the old powers of slavery. But none of this alters the fact that the majority of people on this planet, right up to the present day, have never felt it to be within their power to set the agenda for the future. And that is critical. Even those more enlightened souls who, in one way or another, have been able to light the way for mankind, have not been able to break the spell of the pre-planned agenda. Predestined still overshadows free will. Predestination still overshadows free will, delaying the deep changes that would emancipate humanity. The 1% still hold the sword over the 99%. The individual cases of enlightenment that do take place within the agenda of the existing status quo. Interpret that sentence, please. The individual cases of enlightenment that do take place within the agenda of the existing status quo. I'd love some of you to comment on that particular statement, please. Okay, hold on. As we witnessed even in the first 2 decades of the 21st century, the majority of people still expect today's fake leaders to do their bidding, still accept their role as slaves to the system with its overt imposition of mass indoctrination and mind control. An indoctrination all too often aided and abetted by the authoritative theology of the church, and more recently by the addition of global corporate elites. Every year the master plan is renewed. Whoa! Okay, I'm going to say that again. Every year the master plan is renewed. As secretive Bilderberger sessions pull together leading figureheads of corporations, scientific research, military, royalty, and politics, who tweak the top-down agenda in order to maintain the status quo at whatever cost. Broadly speaking, that is still where we are today. So, have you seen the future? And if so, is it a future that has finally been prized free from the grip of the relentless psychopathic control freaks? What action do you see yourself taking in relation to the shaping of the oncoming events? Here's what I see, and it hovers in front of me. Halfway chimera and halfway reality. I see that we are at an admittedly still quite tentative level, actually sickening for our Kali Yuga school desire to have and to conform, and that our new propensity is moving us ever closer to a desire to be and cease to conform. The more this inclination gains strength, the more we experience being as the true expression of what it means to be human. So different from the dead weight of the having mode. A state of consciousness that lifts us out of our old serfdom, connecting up past, present, and future, and merging them into an inseparable continuum, a quantum state of oneness with our indestructible divinity. Here in this place, what we see ahead of us is a projection of the vibrancy of the now. There is no pre-planned future to suffocate our creativity. All time is pulled into a vibrant, ever-expanding present, and we are in the driving seat of change, whether we know it or not. We are, as a collective population, we do drive the car. Alright? We the people are getting ever closer to gaining this insight, and the illuminated powers that go with it. The future we collectively see, while in this state of oneness, is the future we will go on to build. It is the state of consciousness that, when experienced by a critical mass of individuals, will finally collapse the age-old status quo and all the heinous repression that goes with it. Although the war-tainted darkness presses in around us, a great awakening of humanity is not far off. An age of emancipation in which we are able to break free of our slavery and take a controlling influence over our lives, as well as the health and welfare of our beleaguered planet. At one with the very universal forces from which we were birthed in the first place. So onwards, fellow adventurers. The answer to our calling is at hand. The predestination master plan is shredding. Sorry, I gotta pause. Our oppressors are losing their grip on the reins of power, and with our active help, will soon be in full retreat. Their mission to conquer and enslave the spirit of man and of earth will be overcome and will end in abject failure. Hail to that great day. On that note, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, peace.